Hello again, everyone. I'm Kenny Rice. Welcome to the Horse Racing Show. Big show for you today. A trainer of not one, but two Derby contenders, Patrick Biancone, will join us. And then later on, Steve Smoger, who is a Boxing Hall of Fame referee. What is he doing on a horse racing show? He knows a lot about that sport as well. And it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because at one time, especially the 40s and the 50s, there was baseball, and there was horse racing, and there was boxing. And those were the three sports. Now, horse racing and boxing have something very much in common. They're struggling to find a mass audience out there. They've been passed, obviously, by the National Football League, but by extreme sports, by mixed martial arts, and they're all still trying to find their place in there. And occasionally they have a big star that comes along that gets people's attention, at least for a while, like we had with Justify and American Pharaoh, maybe like we just had with Tyson Fury winning his rematch with Deontay Wilder over the weekend. Steve will talk about that. Patrick's going to talk about his two horses and the way to get to the Kentucky Derby, he hopes. Mr. Thomas Kenny, our researcher, with us as always. On lead guitar this week is Ben Chaffins. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Kenny.
Scott Hall, overseeing the operation, in and out. He's a busy guy today. But let me throw some names at you out there. Tiz the Law, Dennis Moment, Governor Morris, 1,000 Words, Authentic, Nadal, 8 Rings, Maxfield, who is yet to run this year, trained by Brendan Walsh, who's been on the show, Mr. Monomoy, who just won, Silver Prospector, Storm the Court, Independence Hall. A lot of names I'm throwing out. And the whole point is, which one, if not all, will make it to the Kentucky Derby? At this stage, it's still really early to tell.
A little bit of March Madness in February, huh?
It is. It's very much like that. You know, like teams are talking now, that loss that I had way back, is that going to hurt my chances in my seeding? Will that bubble teams and mid-sized conferences, will that keep me out of the tournament? Politicians, right now, the Democratic primary, a bad loss. Maybe I don't get the support I needed anymore. Nobody's giving me the money. I'm going to have to cease my campaign. How many have we seen drop by the wayside there? Not unlike horse racing, really, at this stage, Thomas.
It is just a big campaign to get yourself into the Derby, right?
That's it. The only good thing about this is it is unbiased in the fact that you have to have enough points to qualify. So the races that are coming up are the 10-point races and good points for second and third, and that puts you in a position, and it gives the trainers an idea too. And most of these guys, they're so good, they're not going to stick a horse in there to stick a horse in there. Sometimes they kind of have to because the owners have a lot of money. They've been loyal clients, and they go, hey, you know, I'm 30-1, but put me in. I want to take a shot anyway. What the heck? We finished third behind the best horse that everybody considers right now.
Or maybe you pull a country house and end up winning the whole thing.
Well, see, that's the thing. We talked about it a few weeks ago. You know, Mind That Bird and Giacomo and Country House, those horses come along, so it's hard to say you cannot be in the picture anymore. You cannot be in there. You're still in the running, Elizabeth Warren. You don't have to quit just yet. That's what they're saying.
Much like the NCAA basketball tournament, there's a lot of room for upsets in horse racing.
Well, you know, you see Loyola Chicago make it to the Final Four. George Mason makes it to the Final Four of VCU. Yeah, it always makes it interesting. So we talked about a lot of these guys. Bob Baffert, by the way, has like 5 or 6 horses right now. Todd Pletcher's very much in the mix. Dell Romans, who's going to talk to us in a few weeks, is in the mix. Our friend Brad Cox, who's been on the show several times with Mr. Monoboy. Peter Urton, who's been on the show with Storm the Court, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year. So, you know, they're very much in the mix. And also very much in the mix is Patrick Biancone, the Frenchman who has made his home in the U.S. He has Sol Volante and Ete Indian. They are two legitimate contenders. They're both based at the moment in Florida. When we come back, we'll talk to trainer Patrick Biancone about his two Derby hopefuls. Stay with us here on the Horse Racing Show. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Thank you for tuning in. What's better than having one Derby contender? How about two? And the well-respected trainer Patrick Biancone is back on the Derby scene with Sol Volante and Ete Indian. Both of them are based in Florida. It looks like Sol Volante is pointed toward the Tampa Bay Derby March 7th. Ete Indian a little closer. He's going to run in the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream on February 29th if all goes well. And, of course, every trainer is hoping that at this stage. And with me is a man that I've known for over 30 years. I think I met him right around the time that the great filly All Along came along, a ARC winner in '83 that became also the U.S. Horse of the Year. And here is Patrick Biancone. Patrick, good to catch up with you. Congratulations. To be in the hunt with two of them right now is pretty impressive.
Thank you very much. Good morning. And everything is going smooth at the moment. But, in our business, it's not all the time smooth. But fortunately, we enjoy every minute at the moment.
Is there one that Sol Volante seems to be getting the most attention because he won the Sam F. Davis down there at Tampa Bay. Do you have an order that you would rate your horses right now?
To be honest with you, it's a question everybody asks me, and even Luca Panici, who write both of them, we don't know. We never work them together. They're very, very different. One is Sole Volante being a closer, and Etendien being a speed horse. They're very different, and hopefully everything go right with both of them. They keep improving, and we may be there on May 2nd.
Do you get excited right now, or do you allow yourself to do that, or do you know how tough it is to make it in the next couple of months or so to Churchill Downs, which every trainer is going through at this stage, I'm sure?
Yeah, it's the same than every day, with a difference that when you have a shot to the Kentucky Derby, for sure, make your nerves a little bit more raking. But to be honest with you, my position with these two horses is like they need to improve. What they have done up to today is great. Very happy with that. And but to be if they don't improve until the big day, I mean, we may not come. You know what I'm saying? They need to improve, and it's why we have to go race by race. And like you told, that Etendien will have a better idea about him next Saturday. And Sole Volante is breathing tomorrow. From there, we decide if we go to Tampa or to Louisiana Derby.
Yeah, so I said earlier that it looked like Tampa, but Louisiana is still very much in the picture for Sole Volante at this stage.
Yeah, the difference is you run the Louisiana. It's the timing thing. I mean, if you run back in a Tampa Bay Derby, he will run back after 4 weeks. What we have never done that yet, because we have tried to space the races to give them a chance to grow and to develop. Then, the best answer is the work. Well, we see how he works tomorrow, and from there we decide. Personally, I like to go to Tampa because it's closer, but if we have to wait a little bit more and go to the Louisiana Derby, we will go there.
Everybody at this stage, they don't like hiccups. Any trainer doesn't like a hiccup. You had a big one in Luca Panici, has a broken collarbone, who was the jockey for both your Derby contenders. So you've had to make a change, obviously, with him on the sideline. Is that any concern now that the new jockey, who is a very successful one in Florent Giraud, is going to be on for the next race?
Yeah, I think, if you don't like changes, when everything going your way smoothly, you don't like changes. But unfortunately, the sport where the jockey got hurt sometime, and it's a blow for 5 minutes. Then you look forward, and you hope to have him to recover quick. And we have the luck to have a talented jockey like Florent Giraud to fill up the shoes or the boots and jump on a horse.
We're talking with Patrick Biancone, the talented trainer who came from France to the U.S. several years ago, brought over the great filly All Along, who's in the Hall of Fame in both Canada and the U.S. That's how good she was, the ARC winner who won the Rothmans International at Woodbine, the Turf Classic at Aqueduct, the DC International at Laurel. And we'll get back to the Derby for just a moment, Patrick. But, All Along, you've had several successful horses, but to have a special horse like that, I'm sure that comes up in the conversation every now and then. She does.
Yeah, for sure. But, I was young. I tried something a bit crazy, and it works. And everybody remember, if you have not worked, we will not talk about it. But now, she was an exceptional horse, and she came in great form at the right time. She have a lot of things for her. Number one, she was very good. Number two, she traveled very well, and she was a very very, very nice horse to train. Just do what you want. And had a great jockey at the time, who unfortunately Walter Swinburne, who passed away since, but
Right.
he gave him 4 the Arc, and the other races he gave 4 unbelievable rides. And you know, you need the team. It's why to go back to now. As much I'm happy to have Florent to ride my horses. I mean, you know, he need to fill up the boots. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like the 2 horses that did not run good the last race. They run really good. The pressure may be a little bit on him more than me. You know.
Yeah. I imagine that's the toughest thing for any trainer is the timing and figuring out, is this the spot? Do we need another week? Do we go, in the case of Sol Volante, who was doing well on the turf, right? So you got the decision, turf horse, or do we come to the dirt?
Yeah, you know, the thing is, you know, he's bred for, we all know that. He has a fantastic breeding and he's bred for turf. But, you know, we are in North America, and if you have a horse with a lot of class and talent, at least you need to try him once on the dirt to see where you sit. And I was extremely happy with his first run in the Macho Mucho Man, and then we decided to stay on the dirt for the moment.
Training has changed a lot for Derby horses, probably changed a lot since 2004 when you ran second with Lionheart, who was just a terrific runner. I know that was just a big moment to almost. I know that almost, but you lost to a pretty good horse named Smarty Jones that day.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he was almost, like you said. Almost is not bad, but, you know, the horse ran a great race. Mike Smith gave him an unbelievable ride, too, and we was delighted to be second. Then he come out to win the Ascot, and he was a great horse. You know, he was a great horse, and we loved him as we love most of them and all of them. And it was a good time. You know, good time.
And you know, and since that time, Patrick, it seems to me that training has changed so much going into the Derby. You know, at one stage, if you didn't have at least a handful of races under them, you'd think, what's wrong? Why did they miss a race? You know, why has it been 6 weeks since their last race? Why is a horse like an Animal Kingdom coming onto the dirt? They might say that was Sol Volante right now, but not after he obviously won the Sam F. Davis. But, I mean, it's not the same as it was, I think, even 15, 16 years ago, the correct way, if you will, to get a horse to the Kentucky Derby.
I mean, you know, it's like everything changed in life. Personally, if the horse can do it, I think they need to have a bit of conditioning to go to the Derby. And I will be an old-fashioned guy, all right, for the moment. We'll see now if he works or not.
Hey, well, it's worked so far.
It's why, you know, for Sol Volante, the big difference, if he's well and everything good, the big difference between running the Tampa Bay Derby or the Louisiana Derby, it means that if you run the Tampa Bay Derby, you can nicely put another race in him before the Derby. And I believe more in racing than in training. If not, I need to drill him in the morning, where you can make no money. The horse learn nothing because he's used to do that. And but you know, it's not because I think that I'm right, you know, but only the result counts. You know, if the final result is great, you are the best. If the other result is no good, you should have done another way, maybe, you know.
Right.
But, you know, I believe horses need to run, you know, and don't need to have especially a build-up when they run, but they get a good education, a good race. They learn from race to race, you know. It's why I like to do that, you know.
And
I think I ran Lionheart 3 times before the Derby.
Yeah. Well, you know, old school's a good school to stay in, isn't it, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like everything is different, you know, now, but in any business, things change, evolve, and sometimes you go one way, then you go back the whole way. You know, all depends. In fact, you know, all depends on the horse, because if you have the right horse, you roughly can do what you want. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The horse makes the difference. You know, what most of the people forget that in our business, the trainer, the jockey are nobody. They don't have the right horse. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
The horse is is the one who is important. You know, like I love to do this interview with you, but I want to see my horse Saturday do the talking for me. You know, this will be more important.
I understand. And to Indian, if he runs, do you have a plan? We're talking with Patrick Biancone, who has Sol Volante and Ete Indian, both very much on the scene right now, as are several other horses, going to the Kentucky Derby. If Ete Indian, does he have to run a certain race in the Fountain of Youth on February 29th? In other words, do you say he's got to be in the top 3, or he's got to do this or that? Obviously a win, and he goes on.
No.
Or do you just wait and see how they come out of it?
No, it's very... I don't run them to prove anything to anybody, okay? I know these two horses are extremely talented.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give them a chance to keep developing. It's why I got a plan, but, the initial plan will be for Sole Volante, the Tampa Bay Derby, then the Wood Memorial, and for Ete Indian, the Fountain of Youth, and the Florida Derby. This is my plan. But now, it can change because it depends how they improve from race to race and how they improve in the morning, how they take the pressure of a race every month. You know what I'm saying? It just depends on them. But for sure, we have a plan. I would like to run these two horses twice before, if they're good enough to win the Derby, to run the Derby. But I know how good they are. They don't need to prove me myself. Just what I need is to jump clean, learn to take the sand for one. The other one, learn to rate himself. Don't overdo, don't underdo. Just trying them to bring them. It's like in every sport, okay? When you prepare an athlete for the Olympics, you want him picking at the Olympics day, not 6 months before or 3 months before. You know what I'm saying? Or
Right.
a month before for horses.
What's this been like for you? I know, and you know this well because you ran against Barclay Tagg, who had Funny Side in 2003. It's not like he's always on the scene for the Derby, but he has Tiz the Law. You ran second to him with Ete Indian in the Holy Bull. What's it like for you, the attention coming back and having a Derby horse? And anytime you have a Derby horse, you know how it is in the U.S., there's just more attention on the trainer, and people want to interview you. Are you enjoying this moment? I'm not calling it a comeback, but really back in the limelight like this with two Derby contenders.
At my age, I do it because it's normal to do it, and you need to play the game. But I'm more concerned by my horses and preparing my daughter to replace me in a few years. And what is my aim today is that to produce not a horse, not a jockey. I've done that many times, and I need to produce a trainer. And that one is my daughter, and we're working very tight together. We have a little barn with 25 horses. She can be hands-on on everything with me and learn the job the proper way. And hopefully, when we put her on the market, she will be very successful.
Well, she's got a good person to learn from. Are you do you separate the dad and the trainer, Patrick, or are you tough on her?
I don't know. They call me the tyrant at the barn, but at home, she said that I love you.
That's all that matters.
Exactly.
Patrick, it's great. Yeah.
No, I said, it's all the time really, really good to work in family. And sometimes, when you work in family, you need to put some boundaries to make sure the work don't keep going when you're at home or when you're not at the barn. But she's doing really good, and we're very happy with the situation at the moment.
Patrick, it's great catching up with you. Best wishes coming up with Sol Volante for sure. We're either going to see him, I guess we'll either see him in Tampa Bay or we're going to see him at Louisiana, and then Ete Indian coming up in just a matter of days, February 29th in the Fountain of Youth. And it's good to catch up with you, my friend. We go back a long ways, and hopefully we'll be seeing you with one or both at the Derby in a few weeks.
Hopefully it's where we wake up every morning to train them to arrive to this achievement, But thank you so much for the interview, and we'll keep in touch. We'll see what happens in the next few weeks.
Definitely so. Thank you very much, Patrick Biancone. All the best. We have more
Thank you.
coming up here
Bye-bye.
on the Horse Racing Show. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. It's been downloaded in 22 countries. It's listened to on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, on radio stations throughout the country, and on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. I think I got it all.
You got them all?
All right. I'm Kenny Rice. Thank you for staying with us. Enjoyed talking to Patrick Biancone, who, like he said, he's going old school. He's kind of getting some works. He wants to get some races under his two Derby contenders, Sovalente and Etu Indian, and well knows, of course, it depends on how they do in their next races coming up. So welcome back into the show. We were talking earlier, and coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to talk to Boxing Hall of Fame referee Steve Smoger. He has some great stories of the old Atlantic City race course where he worked there before he got into the boxing. And boxing and horse racing kind of go hand in hand in many ways, especially if you look back in the history of the two. And one thing that I've always noticed and talked about, the two sports, combative sports and horse racing, the participants, the weight is so important. For the jockeys, they have to make weight. They don't ride if they don't make weight. If they continue not to make weight, they're out of a job. In combative sports, probably more so in MMA, they're a little more, they really have it down a little more in their weight classes. It's changed a lot in boxing over the years, but you still have to make weight. Not in the heavyweight ranks anymore. It's gotten out of hand. Used to, there was heavyweights. Now these guys are mammoth. They're super, super heavyweights, as we just saw with Tyson Fury, who weighed like 273 when he defeated Deontay Wilder in their rematch not long ago in Las Vegas. But, you know, back in the day, Thomas, who's the heaviest heavyweight?
That would be...
The name just rolls off the
Nikolai
tongue.
Valuev. I have to look up a phonetic spelling for that one.
Valuev, a Russian that was, how much did he weigh?
In his winning bout against John Rees in 2005 to take the heavyweight title, he weighed 323 pounds.
Wow, that's a little heavy. That's a little heavy. And people think, well, heavyweights, but listen to some of the heavyweights over the years. How much do you think Muhammad Ali weighed? Roughly, you know, I mean, there was times it varied, especially you got 211 pounds.
Anywhere from 210 to 215 is generally what he would weigh in at for his bigger fights.
Evander Holyfield, 218 pounds. Joe Frazier, 205 pounds. Mike Tyson, you see how big Mike Tyson is, 217, 220 pounds. It's basically what these guys weighed in. And now you got guys weighing in at 245, 250. Nobody even blinks. Rocky Marciano, undefeated. Floyd Mayweather's the only one that's stayed undefeated longer than Marciano. He weighed 184 pounds. Way back, Jersey Joe Walcott, we'll talk about him because our next guest will talk about him, weighed 195 pounds. Now it's just crazy, isn't it? Now it doesn't even matter. That just doesn't even get you a blink if you come in there weighing that much.
Yeah, I weighed about that much when I was catching in high school.
Yeah, it's amazing, you know, and it kind of goes to weights. Obviously, jockeys, you know, maintain weights. They don't want to get around 115 is big. Now, if you're racing in Europe, it's different. You can carry more weight over there. And some great jockeys like Steve Cawthon, who didn't have like a weight problem. When you talk about weight problem with these high-class jockeys, you're only talking about a few pounds. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like they ballooned up to like 145. You know, it might be the difference between 115 and 120. That's a big difference for a lot of these guys. Cash Asmussen was another great American rider that had more success in Europe because he's kind of tall and big boned, and it was much easier to carry around 120 pounds naturally for him. Horses in general, you know, they took great pride. There was a horse, Dr. Fager, one of the great, just lightning fast sprinters who ran at Hollywood Park years ago. John Nehru, legendary trainer. And, you know, there was talk how much weight would he carry. And he carried, I think, 130 pounds, which was 14 more than any other horse in the race. And he won. Curlin, the champion, carried 130, I think, in his first race back as the champ or something in that ballpark. And, but since then, there's been a lot of complaints like, oh, the horse is carrying too much. That used to be great pride. The horse is carrying this much weight. That means my horse, it's handicapping. It's like golf. I'll give you so many strokes. You know, I'll give you so many strokes. Mm-hmm. I'll give you 10 pounds. I'll give you 14 pounds, and my horse is still better. And there used to be great pride in that. Sometimes there's a little pullback now. A lot of owners and trainers don't like that. Interesting. Heavyweight champs are going up and getting bigger and bigger. Horses carrying less weight by and large than they did in the handicap division.
Well, if you'll allow me to make another motorsports comparison.
Please do.
It's, the concept of weight reduction in motorsports from, the very low level all the way up to what you'd see in Formula One. It's all about the weight. People come up with lighter materials. You see carbon fiber popping up in the 20th century and all these different, methods. Like, what if we remove this? What if we tweak that? What if we made the wing lighter? It's the same thing with a jockey. The lighter the jockey, the faster the horse can go.
Look at that. Look at that. You aerodynamic-minded guy, you. That's impressive. Ben?
Well, he is certainly not wrong. But at one point, when do you start sacrificing your weight and speed for, stability, structure?
Oh, good point. I don't know. These cars are amazingly safe to go at the speeds they go. I mean, it's especially the stock cars. It's crazy how safe they are.
For sure. Formula One and
no,
Indy,
you're
they
wide
can
open.
Disintegrate.
Yeah, you're
if
wide
they hit a
open.
wall.
You got your butt is almost on the ground, and you got 4 tires around you. I mean, those guys fascinate me. Go see a movie called Rush, by the way. Ron Howard movie came out several years ago.
Not to be confused with the band.
Not to be confused with Geddy Lee. No, not at all. Okay, when we come back, we'll be talking with Hall of Fame boxing referee Steve Smoger. He knows a thing or two about horse racing as well. It's only here. You only get this kind of stuff on the Horse Racing Show. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice. Thank you for tuning in again, be it YouTube, be it on the radio, be it iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or iHeartRadio. One of the great things that I've had throughout this career is some of the people that I've met and just enjoyed being around. And after a while, you remember them as much as any event that you've covered. And one of those guys, I was doing a fight for NBC in 2012, calling a boxing match in Philadelphia. It was between fights. This Hall of Fame referee looks over at me and says, "Who do you like in the Derby this year?" And we became friends instantly. He is Steve Smoger, the Hall of Fame boxing ref. He's called over 200 title fights, more than anybody else. And Steve joins us now. I remember that. She said, "Who do you like in the Derby?" I go, "Who is this guy? He's a Hall of Fame ref. How does he know about horses?" And then you told me your story, Steve.
It's incredible, Kenny. Of course, boxing is my first love, but a real close second is the sport of kings. I really enjoy horse racing. As I was coming up in Atlantic City, it was the heyday of Atlantic City racetrack, and I spent terrific time out there with my dad, who was a racing. I don't want to say junkie, but racing was his top sport. He really, really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed being around the jockeys, watching the horses run. I think it's a fabulous sport. And you, my friend, when I saw you, I said, you, to me, epitomize racing. As long as I've been involved, you've been calling the action, interviewing. I enjoy your work. I truly enjoy your work.
Well, we had a great time working those 4 or 5 years, and you were our analyst, and you would give us insight on the rules, and you would tell me about some of the guys, these legendary jockeys and some of the horses that you saw at the old Atlantic City racetrack. And I mean, you're like a walking history of that track.
Listen, Kenny, I was a jockey's valet right out of high school. My first job was to valet for Jolton Joe Comone. Remember him?
Yeah, I remember the name, yes.
Yeah, and then habla poco español, Heliodoro Gustin. Remember him?
Yes, I do.
Out of New York. And then a guy who treated me really, really royally, Johnny Ruane.
Oh, yeah.
I was their little gopher. I ran their errands, went to the cleaners, did this. They all lived in and around Atlantic City during the meet. And I would go from here to there. And of course, I was allowed in the jocks room, which was terrific. And I really, really enjoyed the sport, And being around those guys was really, really terrific. And yes, go ahead, Kenny.
Well, Steve, we talked about earlier on this show about how one thing I've always noticed about combative sports and horse racing was the importance of weight for the athletes. Now, not as much in the heavyweight ranks of boxing these days. I mean, it's off the chart how big these guys have gotten.
It's incredible.
But if you don't make your weight, if you're a middleweight, you're a featherweight, you don't make your weight, you're going to be penalized purse, or maybe eventually you won't be getting some fights. And the same with the jockey. They don't make weight, they're not riding, and that's they don't get too many guaranteed deals on this level, and not everybody's making the $100 million pay-per-view deals.
Right.
That's what always amazed me as to how good a shape these athletes are. Jockeys and boxers.
Right. Incredible. One thing I really noticed about the jocks, Kenny, their hands. Their hands were, incredible to be able to control a 1,000-pound animal, how they were able to manipulate. And they all worked out, and they were all really in incredible shape. And as you said, if a fighter doesn't make weight, he may not, he'll be penalized, some purse. And in cases of a title fight, if they don't make weight, the title then is not at stake because they're beyond the weight limit. So weight is a major factor in those two sports.
We're talking with Steve Smoger. He is the Hall of Fame ref. He has reffed boxing matches in more states and countries than anybody else. That's why he's in the Boxing Hall of Fame. He's been in the ring with guys like Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, Roy Jones Jr., Roberto Duran, Andre Ward. And, I could go on, Steve, but do you have a moment in there that a fight you especially remember, or two of all the ones you've called?
Kenny, we touched upon it when we were just catching up. And I truly missed our conversations and our time with PBC and NBC.
Yeah.
But yes, the Trinidad Hopkins one in the Garden.
Oh, yeah.
Was the first major event after 9/11. You had over 26,000 in the Garden. It was, as Don King said, the first step in the country's recovery. It was about 2.5 weeks after the devastation. And the feeling in the Garden. And this is one event where the pre-hype of the fight met those expectations. You had two undefeated fighters, Trinidad and Hopkins, and they fought beautifully well into the 12th round when I went in and Papa Trinidad, similar to what we just saw in Wilder Fury, as I was about to go in, Papa Trinidad threw in the towel. And we were simultaneous with a 12th round stoppage. And that was very, very meaningful to me, being there involved in the first major event following 9/11, and it was truly distinctive. And the other one that, as we all know, Kenny, in all stages, you, me, you always need a little jump start as your career is going. You look for lifts.
Right.
In 2007, I did Pavlik Taylor 1 in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
And Kelly was exceedingly hurt in round 2, and he fought his way back for a 7th round stoppage. And the media and the pundits, they always, you didn't stop it in 2, why did you stop it in 7? And clearly it was night and day. Jermaine was out on his feet where Kelly had managed to survive. And that jump-started my career. I got a real boost, started to get a lot of major fights again. And in 2007, I was somewhat of a veteran with younger guys coming up. And this put the spotlight in a favorable way back on me. And I caught some major work after that fight. They said that they had half of Youngstown, Ohio in Atlantic City, and they said I could have ran for mayor and won in a landslide. Kelly Pavlik's hometown.
Oh,
And
it's a great
that was-
boxing town. Youngstown's something
is.
else.
It is, Kenny. And so those were and a lot, listen, when you do a Mike Tyson fight, when you do a Lennox Lewis, when you do an Andre Ward, an undefeated gold medalist in his hometown in California, these are moments to really, really remember. And, I'm still active, not to that degree, but the International Boxing Association sends me somewhere once a month, hoping I'd run into you. But you're on the track. You're not at the ring.
We got to get him to send you to the Derby. I mean, at one time, if we were in the 40s and 50s, we'd be stars, wouldn't we, doing boxing and horse racing?
I'm telling you.
We'd be, if we could throw baseball in, we'd cover every sport that mattered back then.
But I got to tell you something, though, and you are Mr. Consistency. As I tried to be in the ring, you are trackside. Your insight, walking with Bob Baffert, getting the insight on his horses pre-Derby, it's really fantastic. I so much enjoy chatting with you when we had those moments between fights. Me with the insight on the fights, you with the insight on racing. And I just wish you continued success. Your time of the year is coming, buddy.
I know, and when we come back,
far.
we're going to talk more about that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Atlantic City racing back in the day with the Hall of Fame boxing ref, Steve Smoger. Stay with us. You're in tune to the Horse Racing Show. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. We're talking with Steve Smoger, who's just one of the great guys I've had the chance to work with. He's called over 200 title fights. He's in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I don't know many people that can speak so eloquently and knowledgeable about horse racing and boxing, but he can. And we're talking about the old Atlantic City racecourse earlier, Steve, where you were a valet for some of the outstanding up-and-coming and legendary jockeys. And I believe back in the day, from my research, guys like Frank Sinatra and Harry James and Xavier Cugat and Bob Hope had all invested in the Atlantic City racetrack. I mean, them were the days, weren't they, pal?
Let me tell you something, Kenny. You're right, as usual, with the race game. You're right on. It was the highlight. Sinatra, may he rest in peace, would appear at the Latin Casino. That was the name of this venue in Camden, which was a high-line entertainment center. And he'd come down, and we were the featured track. The United Nations brought everybody in, and I came along in the late 60s out of high school and then into college. And then even while I was in law school, I'd come back and valet at the track there. And it was the place to be seen. I said the United Nations was our key race. We had 50-day racing. What do we call that, Kenny? Meets.
Yeah, in the meet, yeah. I mean, that was the meet highlighted by the United Nations handicap, yeah.
Exactly. And we had tremendous racing, tremendous stables, and draw great crowds. And then as casino gaming came in, it waned. But we certainly did have an outstanding run in the 60s, 70s, up to gaming, which came in the early 80s. So then we tried Garden. We had Garden State Park that also had some major racing, and it sort of faded away. And now, if I want to see a good live race, I got to go to Philadelphia to Park Casino.
Yeah.
And they run some decent races. Their highlight is the Pennsylvania Derby, which is a lot of fun. So we really had a tremendous run. It was the meet of stars, and it was really to be a part of it. And for me, I was a young kid, to be treated so nicely by, Papito, Heliodoro, Gustines, Johnny Ruane, Uh, and Joe Camone, the only guy that really didn't give me the time of day, and only one of the few people in my life to refuse to shake my hand. Who do you think it was, Kenny?
I can't imagine anybody not shaking Hall of Fame boxing referee Steve Smoger's hand. I really can't.
Well, I was a baby in that regard, but you're going to know. Guess what? I loved him in the saddle, but he had a very dry personality. He would walk around in the jock's room between races with a robe with the initials Mr. H. You know who it was?
I think I do, yeah.
Tell me. I'll give you one guess.
You tell me. I think I do, but see, I'll say the wrong guy, and then that'll go out. You know, so you can tell me.
Bill Hardtack.
No, I thought, when you said Mr. H, I thought Hardtack, but then I thought, wow, one of the great legendary riders of all time.
Yeah, but he had no personality. Now, I was a youngster at that time.
Yeah.
And, Johnny's treating me well, and I'm doing. Now, I was their personal valet. I didn't have the benefit of carrying their tack or doing anything like that.
Right.
That was the pro guys. I was the young gopher, but they allowed me in, and I drove. I would get their cars after their race when they were released. I had just gotten my license, so it was very, very interesting. But I went over, and I enjoyed his work, and I went over, and he looked at me like, who's his kid?
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. But other than that, it was okay. Don't get me wrong. Now, opposite, you have time, Kenny? I have a cute story for you.
Yeah, we got 30 seconds.
All right, quick 30 seconds. We did one fight card on the Atlantic City, in the clubhouse of the Atlantic City racetrack. And guess who allowed me to change whose locker I used? The opposite of Hardtack. Great guy. You ready?
Bill Shoemaker?
No, I wish it was. Close. Mike Smith.
Mike Smith. Oh, Mike Smith's one of the all-time great guys, yeah.
One of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
Admired my work, and I said, Mike, I admire you. It was a mutual admiration society. He said, here, Steve, use my locker.
Oh.
It was great.
Yeah.
So we got that in 30, Kenny.
Well, that's because you're the best, and you know all about timing. That's what makes you the Hall of Fame referee. I want to get you back on down the road, and we'll talk more about boxing and how big these boxers are getting. They're out of control. They're bigger than horses now. Tyson Fury could carry a horse. They're huge.
Listen, your season's coming up. I can only wish you the best. You are personally and professionally, a terrific guy. I value our friendship.
I do as well.
Kenny.
I do as
Stay
well.
well, Kenny.
Thank you, Steve Smoger. Great to catch up, my friend. We'll have more when we come back here on the Horse Racing Show. Welcome back to the Horse Racing Show. Thank you for tuning in again this week. It was great to catch up with Patrick Biancone. He has Sol Volante and Etu Indian, two horses. Keep an eye on the Derby Trail. Maybe they'll both make it to Churchill. We know how tough that is. And Hall of Fame boxing ref Steve Smoger, some great stories of his days as a valet as a kid when he was working at the old Atlantic City racetrack. Sinatra was there. Bob Hope was there. Those were the days in horse racing. Okay. Ben Chaffins asked a question during our break. Ben, that question is?
Well, what's tougher to win, the Kentucky Derby or the NCAA championship?
I've got two takes on that. Okay. Thomas, what would you say? Top of your head.
Probably the tournament, just because you have to play more than one game.
I would say that as well. And the best horse does not always win the Kentucky Derby. We can look at past Derby winners, even some recent Derby winners with a few exceptions, and that's true. You just have to have that horse at that moment to get that break. The only thing is, it is that ultimate one and done. You don't get another shot. Maybe for some guys, they won't be back next year. They're not all Bob Baffert and Todd Pletcher. That's what makes it tough. But yes, to win 6 games and the NCAA tournament, that is the toughest thing to do, I do believe.
I would agree.
All right. Now, I'm glad we got that cleared up. Nicky Lauda and James Hunt, by the way, is the rivalry in the movie Rush. That's that car movie I was telling you guys about. Okay, we've talked movies, we've talked boxing, we've talked horse racing, since it is the Horse Racing Show. I'm Kenny Rice, and we'll talk again next week. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.